Did you hear the rapture prophecies back on for a third time? Did you hear this?
Time to give up on that. Right?
Well, yeah, I gave up before it ever started. But the guy who did it, he said it was originally, remember, September 23rd, 22nd and 23rd. Then he switched it based on the Julian calendar. We're on the Gregorian, so he said actually it should be on the Julian calendar. So he switched the dates to October 7th and 8th. And now there's a new date for the 21st and 22nd. So, you get a third chance here to go up in the rapture. But a lot of people have been sucked in because a lot is happening. Not only is it the Feast of Trumpets this time of year, and that's when everybody goes crazy about this stuff, but also there's been some people talking about the peace deal in the Middle East, right? Because that's always tied into this somehow. So I believe it was Monday or in the past week that President Trump signed that peace deal between the Palestinians or Hamas and Israel. And does anyone know where this comes from in the Bible? An idea of a peace deal happening before the rapture or during the tribulation or the Antichrist signing a peace deal? Does anyone know where people get that idea?
If you look in the book of Revelation, you can twist and turn those words into just about anything you want somebody to. It's really not biblical, but...
Right. Let's just open to Daniel chapter 9. We're going to pray and then we'll get into our actual Bible study. But just so you know where people get this idea. Daniel chapter 9. The whole concept of the 7-year tribulation comes from an interpretation of Daniel 9:24 through 27. And I do believe there's going to be a 7-year tribulation. In the book of Revelation, it talks about 42 months and another 42 months, and 3.5 years plus 3.5 years is 7 years. So I do believe this. But there is a statement here in let's start in verse 24. 70 weeks are determined for your people and for your holy city to finish the transgression, to make an end of sins, to make reconciliation for iniquity, to bring in everlasting righteousness, to seal up vision and prophecy, and to anoint the most holy. So he talks about 70 weeks. Remember, these are 70 weeks of years. So a week is 7 years in this context. He says in verse 25, know therefore and understand that from the going forth of the command to restore and build Jerusalem until Messiah the Prince, there shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks, and the street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublesome times. So that goes back into Old Testament times. 483 years from that decree from, I believe it was Artaxerxes, to rebuild Jerusalem. That decree until Palm Sunday is 483 years. So Daniel's prophecy was very accurate to the day, even 483 years. But there's 7 years remaining, right? Of the 490, 483 have already been accomplished. So there's a remaining 7 years, and that's where you get the concept of the 7-year tribulation. But the whole idea of a peace treaty comes to, it's based on this verse 27. It said, well, just go to 26 for context. And after the 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off, but not for himself. So speaking of the crucifixion, and the people of the prince who is to come, which people interpret as the Antichrist, shall destroy the city and the sanctuary. The end of it shall be with a flood. Until the end of the war, desolations are determined. And this is where they get the idea of the peace deal. Verse 27, and then he, who is the he here? This is how futurist scholars interpret the he as being the beast, the little horn, the Antichrist. He shall confirm a covenant with many for 1 week. But in the middle of the week, he shall bring an end to sacrifice and offering. So the idea is that the Antichrist is going to make a treaty. I mean, that's what a covenant is. It's a treaty, it's an agreement, it's a binding agreement. So that's what they say is the peace deal. He makes a covenant or a treaty for 7 years. So 7 years of peace. And then in the middle of that 7 years is when he breaks it. And then you get the abomination of desolation, where the Antichrist is believed to go into the temple, rebuilt temple, declare himself to be God, and everyone needs to worship me. That's what he does in the middle. So, but just in case you were wondering of where does this idea come from of a 7-year peace treaty, this is it, Daniel chapter 9, verse 27. I do not believe that, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I do not believe that the agreement that was made last week was for 7 years. I mean, if that was part of it, then I might be a little more interested. But people are always looking in the newspapers to say, how does this fit Bible prophecy? I think that is a little, sketchy doing that. But at the same time, we should be watching. We should be ready. So I do appreciate that element.